All right, this is just a quick little reaction before I forget. I had the pleasure of watching Nosferatu today. It's been out for a little while now, maybe a month, I'm not exactly sure. But just gut reaction. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the first half of the movie was unquestionably beautiful. The production design, the lighting, it's like it's monochromatic at first, but then the choice of color is it's still very muted, but it just I don't know. There's so many great shots with silhouettes and the gothic architecture when Nicholas Holt arrives at Nosferatu's castle. Uh, the visuals were just delicious, especially like the first half of the movie. I couldn't get over every single shot that I saw. It was just nuts. Um, wow. Performances were great, really well directed. Hats off to the whole cast. Lily Depp. This is not my first time seeing Lily Depp on screen, but this is my first time seeing her in this kind of dramatic role. So I'm not sure if I've missed something. Um, I've only seen her in Yoga Hosers and and in Tusk. So that was my image of her before this movie. Now I have a new image. But I do want to say I thought she was really great. I really, and I hate, I feel like I don't like comparisons so much, but I couldn't help but feel like she reminds me of Keira Knightley. I was like, she reminds me of Keira Knightley um, for some reason. But I just thought she was really surprising. I guess maybe that was it. I think when I first saw Keira Knightley, it was in Bend It Like Beckham, and a pretty really good movie. But I think Keira Knightley was one of those. That was the first time I saw Keira Knightley, and I remember just being shocked. Like she was so intense, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Who is this person coming out here?" She was such an intense character that she played. So when seeing her in the Pirates movie, I was like, "Oh, this is fun." But this is the reverse. I saw Lily Depp in some as a silly Canadian teenager who was annoyed by Americans, and now I'm watching her be visited by evil evil. And things happen during those visits. Ah. Um, wow, but she was really great. The performances, I love the dialogue, written for the screen and directed by uh, Roger Robert Eggers, Roger Eggers, Rogeggers. See, I'm really bad at this, but damn, Robert Eggers really killed it, man. Like the directing, the visual style, and Nicholas Holt. Great to see Willem Dafoe again. Kick Ass is there. Craven. Forget Craven. He's kick ass. He's always going to be kick ass because he kicks ass. We've all seen Bullet Train. Aaron Taylor Johnson is there with the trailer of 28 years later right in front of the movie. That's pretty great. But yeah, so I love the actress who plays Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife. She was great. Like all the performances and the looks. Like everyone really looked like they came out of a photograph of the time. And the whole movie felt like we were just walking through an old photograph. It was really cool, while at the same time suddenly having these like super cinematic silhouette shots. And two of my favorite shots in this movie are Nicholas Holt in absolute silhouette. One is when he's walking through the trees on a path to the castle, and then these horses come up. But it's both shots are beautiful, but the shot of him walking, there's something about that human silhouette, and then when he freezes in fear as this carriage with horses charges toward him. It was a wonderful shot. And then another shot when he arrives at the castle and he steps through the first doors and they close. And again, we get a wonderful silhouette of him standing under multiple Gothic arches. So that was just stunning to look at. For me, I do think the movie was really solid, really good from beginning to end. I saw it with my friends. She didn't quite feel the ending. The ending wasn't right to her, or it was just kind of too gross for her. Maybe I don't want to speak in her stead, but that was kind of her reaction. But for me, I don't even. The movie could have ended any which way. I think this was a weird situation where I would have accepted any ending to this movie because it is a vampire story. I'm expecting the big battle at the end, but for me, nothing will ever top um, Blade 2 and Dracula Dead and Loving It. Those are my favorite vampiric battle endings. And if you haven't seen um, either of those movies, what are you doing? Stop watching this. Go watch Blade 2 and Dracula Dead and Loving It. They're great movies. Dracula Dead and Loving It. If there was no Robin Hood Men in Tights, Dracula Dead and Loving It would be my favorite Mel Brooks movie. But if you haven't seen that movie is the Dracula story, not unlike what we see here, but based off of the original Dracula movies, or all the Dracula movies, I guess. But yeah, Dracula Dead and Loving It is the shit. But in this case, the movie was so great from beginning to end that I would have accepted any ending if it was the battle or what this was, because I was just like, you got me. The first 50 minutes, the first half of this movie is overwhelmingly beautiful and interesting to look at and just to be in. And I thought, the character stuff was never too much or too long. I thought it moved pretty quickly. And like I said, all the relationships were tight, really tight emotional script. Very interested in these movies that are so many times really. I mean, I complain about Craven, where every single scene is only two people having a conversation, but it's true. But in this movie, it's really just about a cast of 5 people. Not unlike Batman Returns, which is really about exactly 5 people. Batman's observation of Max Schreck and Catwoman and Penguin, with Alfred's occasional thoughts, But that's kind of what's going on here. It's really, this movie's just Nicholas Hoult, Nosferatu, Willem Dafoe, Lily Depp, and Aaron Taylor Johnson and his wife, and it's really just about these relationships as things get worse. And it's good. It's really good. I was stunned anyway. To me, again, it's very rare for me to feel like a movie doesn't really need to end in any particular way. This is one of those. I'm like, I love it. It's good. It's good stuff. But it's really dark. It's really weird. And there's going to be a fuller review beyond this, but this is essentially the best I can do for a spoiler-free review. But what I did like is I just saw the thumbnail. I'm going to watch the interview and then do a longer review for the rest of this review. But it was in the thumbnail, the quote was the director saying that Batman Returns was an inspiration. And with that in mind, I'm like, no wonder I love this movie, because I love Batman Returns. I think that movie is an incredibly beautiful movie with tons of meaning to every visual, which actually I have an upcoming video about that. I already shot something before doing this recording. I'm trying to get the new ones out first instead of whatever the hell I was doing in the preceding years before last year. But yeah, so Nosferatu, spoiler free. I loved it. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. And I'm not for everybody either. So it's not for everybody. But I think you'll really dig it if you are, like I said, a fan of Batman Returns. If you're a fan of something really dark and obscure, stuff like that, I think you'll get a kick out of this. But if you're into more like Annabelle Comes Home, I also watched that, and that was really good. To me, I thought that should have been a PG-13 movie. But anyway, I watched 2 movies in a row that had inanimate objects moving. So if you've seen one and you know what I'm talking about, then you know what's to come in the other. So go check out both of these movies, Nosferatu, if you're into dark, weird stuff. And if you just kind of want a good, fun horror movie, I'd say Annabelle Comes Home. That's a good time. All right, thanks for watching. And then after the opening title sequence, it's going to get nerdy. See you soon. Or not. Yeah. Don't watch this. It's going to get boring. Gut reaction. So here we are talking about Nosferatu. The beginning was my spoiler-free thoughts. I am going to get into spoilers. And first of all, let me say, before I get into spoilers, again, I'm still thinking about this movie. I'm still quoting this movie. You are my affliction. Bill Skarsgård, who plays it, is Count Orlok, or the Nosferatu vampire. Just fantastic work. And before I really get into all of my spoiler thoughts, I just wanted to give some cast and crew shout outs to this movie. I know I said most of the actors' names in the spoiler free section, but I also wanted to name the wife, the actress who plays the wife of Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. That's Emma Corrin. You may know her from Deadpool and Wolverine. I knew when she first showed up on screen. At first, I thought she was the other actress from Invisible Man, who I also love. Her name's escaping me right now. But then I realized, no, that's not her. She's someone else. She's very clearly someone else. You know these eyes. It was those eyes. I recognized her eyes. And I just thought, I love this actress. I don't know why. I'm not sure who she is, but I love this actress. And it turns out the actress playing Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife is Emma Corrin, otherwise known as Cassandra Nova, the multiverse sister of Professor X, or one of the villains, or the villain of Deadpool and Wolverine, which we all loved so much last year. So she was just fantastic. At first her character is just not aloof, but she's just not that involved in the premise or plot. But as things get darker and more intense, you just see how much she conveys connection and emotion and feeling, and how much, like, her sisterhood. Not that she's actually the sister of the main character, Lily Rose Depp's character. Not that they're sisters, but they have this sister-like connection that feels so real, and it feels believable, and it comes so much, not just from Lily Rose Depp, but from Emma Corrin, who just, it's nice to see within the same year, because, again, I don't usually pay attention to this, but within the same year, she played such a villain, such a delicious but likable evil villain. And then to see her here, where she's actually kind of the cannon fodder character, but she's not treated like a cannon fodder. She is given enough scenes and enough presence that you really feel that she has value to the story. It's a good character. She's one of the few. She's really the only defender of Lily Rose Depp, as she's dipping into madness across this movie. Emma Corrin's character holds her together as best as she can. It's a very good character and just great casting. So I just wanted to give Emma Corrin a little shout out at the top of this video because I didn't know who she was at the when I did my spoiler free section. But for the spoilers, I just really want to start out with some shout outs. So I already love the cast. The whole cast I've already talked about, aside from Emma Corrin in the first part. But Robert Eggers. So I haven't seen The Northman, but I love The Witch, and I did not love The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse was really not for me, but it was, of course, a beautiful vision. I can respect that it's still art. That's not for me. It's one of those movies where I learned that lesson. I did defend Joker Folie à Deux, which I don't think was a perfect movie, but I did feel like it was art. There's no question it was art, and I had to value it as like, okay, this is not just some cheap, it's not another soda can from the Marvel machine or the DC machine. This is someone making graffiti art. This is someone making some kind of crazy Jackson Pollock painting. It's a splash of emotion and feeling, and I gotta respect it. I gotta respect it. Same with The Lighthouse. Where I wasn't jumping and screaming to tell the world about this movie because it just wasn't for me. I can't deny as I'm watching, I'm like, wow, what a beautiful vision. What a unique shooting style. Fantastic production design. Like, it's just it is a wonderfully put together piece of art that's just not for me. Much like Swiss Army Man. I'll never get over that. Thank you, Daniel Radcliffe, for doing that movie. You're not Harry Potter to me anymore, okay? You get it, Daniel Radcliffe. Jesus Christ. But yeah, just hats off. I didn't realize this was his fourth movie. I mean, each one of his movies really feels very solidly put together. And I saw the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast where Robert Eggers was interviewed, and obviously the host, who does a great job. I'm sorry his name's slipping me right now, but great podcast. Every time I see that podcast, great interviews of filmmakers, and this is a podcaster who's my kind of podcaster. He really has respect for the filmmaking process, and I feel like he asks even questions I wouldn't think to ask, but questions that I feel are the right questions. That thank God he's asking them, because now I get to have that info. And I really liked that in that podcast, Robert Eggers talks about, he did his homework. He watched all the previous iterations of Nosferatu. And ironically, or maybe it's not ironic at all, but he's worked with Willem Dafoe before with The Lighthouse. And I haven't seen Northman, so I have no clue if he's in that. But I'm pretty sure Willem Dafoe played a version of Nosferatu in a previous movie. I swear I've seen that clip somewhere. But, what's beautiful about this movie is it was so good. I actually want to see the previous versions now, just for the fun of comparison. I really just blown away by this movie. This is why I want to talk about the crew, because it's just the shots and the locations and the production design. It deserves to be shouted out. There's a co-writer credit for Heinrich Gehlin. Didn't look that one up. The composer Robin Corlin looks like he hasn't done too much, but he did The Northman. I really love the score to this movie. It's beautiful. I feel like it's understated because I can't really pinpoint anything in particular for the most part. But when the scenes get scary, and like I described in the spoiler-free section, the wonderful shots of Nicholas Hoult in silhouette when he's in the trees and when he's at the Gothic estates of Count Orlok, like when he's in these locations and there's these sequences of extreme terror, the music is both beautiful and completely uncomfortable at the same time. So Robin Corlin, fantastic job. And I really, I think those sequences are so memorable to me because it was just that perfect 100% perfect, absolute through line of music, visuals, like every single crew member, every single bit of vision, every single bit of direction locked in, where you get an image that someone wants to present to you, and the image in the forest and the image in those gothic arches combined with the music was just so powerful and strong. Although later, of course, there's great music when Count Orlok is really tormenting Nicholas Holt's character. Although, yeah, of course, that music is doing the same great job of these key shots, but those key shots where I just felt they were definitive. They just spoke to this is this director's vision, and it's such a beautiful and complete vision, especially in these particular shots. So I just have to shout out to that. And that same thing being in mind, Jaron Blanchke, I hope I'm saying your name right. I apologize if I'm not. This is cinematographer. He's done a lot of stuff, but I have to shout out to he did Knock at the Cabin, The Northman, The Witch, The Lighthouse. The cinematography is just so on point. Again, it just captures the beautiful silhouettes captured in those first 30 minutes of this movie, but especially those two shots. I mean, this is the sort of thing that got me interested in filmmaking back when I discovered Blade 2. It was the cinematography from Guillermo Navarro. It was so rich and dark and painter-like, and that is what the cinematography achieves here in this movie. Really, just, I have to shout that out. And the production designer who for those who don't know, the production designer, the cinematographer does the lighting and all that stuff, and the director picks the shot, but the cinematographer has to make that shot look good, pick the right lenses, and all that good stuff. But the production designer is the one who actually has to make the location look appropriate and look cinematic and look good for the film or for television, whatever the medium may be. But they really have to they sometimes have to design and construct these sets, which I imagine the Orlok estate must have been a huge set. But it's their responsibility to make sure that all the sets and locations achieve the look that the director wants. And Craig Lathrop just really deserves a shout out. He worked on Eileen, Northman, Empty Man, Devil, All the Time, a bunch of other stuff. But I also wanted to give a little mini shout out to his work as an assistant art director on Copycat, which was a movie that one of my producing teacher, Philip Scheidel, he was a producer on that, or maybe he was assistant. He was a producer of some form, and also 3 to Tango, which I saw as a kid. I don't remember anymore, but it had Nev Campbell and Matthew Perry, rest in peace. It's just all these people, and In Living Color. So I wanted to shout out that I've seen some of In Living Color. It's pretty good. And costumes, just everything just lined up. Costumes were great from Linda Muir and David Schwed. The editing, I'd say, so spot on. Louise Ford, who I've just followed on Instagram because of this movie. Well, we'll see if she accepts my follow. But her editing is just so tight and precise and perfect. I don't know I do feel like maybe there's a little edit at the end I might have done a little different. Or no, I would have wanted a certain shot at the end, but I'll talk about that when I'm really talking about the movie. But that has nothing to do with the editing. The editing is just so spot on in this film. And Louise Ford, what she worked on The Witch, Don't Breathe, Siberia. There's 2 Siberia movies as far as I know. One has Willem Dafoe, the other has Keanu Reeves. I've seen the Keanu Reeves one. Mini shout out to Siberia with Keanu Reeves. I actually think that's a really good little movie if you're interested in just a Keanu Reeves movie where he's an outsider in a land that's not his own, and he ends up getting mixed up with some really questionable violent characters. So it's a really good little movie. Don't Breathe is really cool. That has the actor from Avatar, the grizzly general guy who tries to kill everybody, where he's a blind man attacking some miscreants breaking into his home. But yeah, so Least Ford, I've seen those movies, and I know for sure the editing was tight in all of them because I remember them. I remember those movies pretty clearly, and I do remember them just feeling like really good, tight movies. There was never a second that was wasted. Really good. And casting director, we got to shout out to the fact that we have a fantastic cast. It's not just the director who comes up with the cast, although the director often does and should. But many times it's a casting director who helps shape the cast, and they help. Their job is to really produce a cast that feels believable to the world of the film, that matches the director's vision, and that everyone, they have to all have a quality amongst each other. And oftentimes the casting director will do the legwork before showing a director a certain actor. They will do the legwork of auditioning an actor more than once, or auditioning actors against each other if they feel, ooh, this could be something good to present to the director, as this pair would be a great pair together, or these particular actors really sell the emotions or the things going on in this film. So Carmel Cochran, she worked on A Quiet Place Day One, which I loved. I have a whole review for that where I'm in love with that movie. First Omen, which apparently was pretty cool. I didn't think it looked good in the trailer, but Red Letter Media said it was good, so now I want to check it out. Bob Marley, which I haven't seen, heard good things about. Saltburn, I haven't seen, but I've heard good things about. And John Wick 4. So I love John Wick 4. I think it's probably the best since the first one, and I love the second one. All three are great. All four are great, but the first one is a great movie. The second one is a great piece of action, and the fourth one just does better what the third one does. But they're all awesome. But yeah, so I was really impressed with the work of this crew, and I just wanted to shout out some of their other works. If you've seen any of their movies that I've mentioned, then you've seen their work. And this all comes from actually a friend of mine from college who, when I told her that I was going to do this podcast, initially I was just going to be talking about directors because that's my field of study. I have a bachelor's in directing for film and television, and even before going to college, I was watching movies and always looking for where the director was coming from, because that perspective informs why the crew members do what they do. And that was, to me, always the most important thing. But when I shared this idea with my friend, she rightfully said, hey, what about the rest of the crew? The rest of the crew, without them, the movie couldn't possibly be what it is. So, Yuki, thank you, my buddy. She was totally right, and that's why I now have, from time to time, these little segments where I shout out the crew members. And if there's something very specific, I'll look for that. But like, I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Anne Foley's costumes. Anne Foley, if you don't know, she did Altered Carbon as well. But to me, the killer of most superhero shows is that the costumes suck. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was one of those first superhero shows. It doesn't really have a lot of superheroes in it, but whenever they did show up, Anne Foley's costume design was so distinctive and cinematic. It really made the show elevated for what a low budget it really had, because it was a ABC television show, and sort of things like that, like noticing Anne Foley, that kind of stuff made me realize, oh, you know what? Yuki's right, and I gotta give the crew some love too. It can't just be about the director. And this is a year where I'm starting to really appreciate what actors do, because I've moved. I'm not in LA, but I'm close to LA, and reconnected with a couple of my actor buddies, and I'm just kind of in the process of falling in love with movies again. And when you really appreciate what everyone brings to the table, you realize, yes, the director has a key role, the most important role, because they have to say yes to all of this. But still, to the people they say yes to, credit is owed. So there's a ton of other credits. I didn't even look at the producing credits because I wouldn't know what they did. But obviously the producers deserve a hats off for pulling together a movie and making it possible. So I apologize that I didn't say your names, but the producers obviously deserve a huge amount of credit here, because this movie is somehow a beautiful art piece, while I feel also being a really good horror dark movie. And it's funny, on the Happy Sad Confused podcast, and I'll include a link below, on that interview, both the director and the host were like, this could be the Twilight for today's generation, which is like, great, thank you. Today's generation deserves a real vampire movie. That was the worst thing to me when Twilight was such a hit. And I was just like, this is not a vampire movie. That's a unicorn in human form. If they don't burn in the sun, but they sparkle, that's a fucking unicorn. Unicorns sparkle in the sun. So, and then everyone has different powers. That's the X-Men. So they're unicorn X-Men. They're not vampires at all. They just happen to drink blood to survive. They're not really vampires. It's not a vampire story. I think the first movie comes close to being a vampire story, and beyond that, it's just the X-Men's Da Vinci Code or something like that. But for tween romance lovers, tween romance book lovers. That's what I would say. No offense, after saying the most offensive thing you could possibly say. But, hey, I watched them all. I watched them all with my sisters. I enjoyed them. But, I still didn't feel like it was a legit vampire story. I'm sorry. But this, to me, Nosferatu, I'm like, yeah, this to me hones closer to Interview with the Vampire, which was my vampire movie growing up in the 90s. Before, of course, I would see Blade and Blade 2, and that would change me forever and change everything forever. But Nosferatu does such a good job of just being a scary, creepy, semi-romantic, super dark gothic movie. Count Orlok is so creepy. I was not scared of it. I really felt like it just didn't work for me. When I watched that movie, and again, I don't mean any offense. This is just my feeling. When I watch it, and I believe it's directed actually by Andy Muschietti. When I watch it, it feels overproduced to me. It feels like, okay, this is like a commercial for it as opposed to the movie, because it just looks too good. It's too crisp. There's too much music, and there's not enough silence. And I also felt like it himself was just more comical in presentation than scary. So, ironically, coming from the director of Mama, who really, there's some scary visuals in that movie. But that's how I felt and I've never gotten through it. So of course I didn't get through chapter 2. But ironically, uh, from Happy Sad Confused, Robert Eggers said, seeing Bill Skarsgård in It Chapter 2, there's a particular version of It that's like an old man. When he saw that, he knew that Bill Skarsgård could pull off a great Count Orlok, and he does. I mean, this character is terrifying and creepy to the nth degree. That's why I appreciate this movie so much. So, going into spoilers now, talking about this movie in spoiler form. Here we go. All right, spoilers. Let's get into this movie. Damn. You know, it took me a minute to actually do this recording, and but thankfully the movie, I haven't seen anything new yet, so nothing has flushed this movie out of my brain. But I think it was really cool that right up front, we start off with Lily Rose Depp begging for someone to give her comfort and be there for her. And you don't really know what the context is up front. But when we later find that out, and remember, this is spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, come on, I'm doing this on purpose to be for people who've seen the movie. Watch the movie. It's so good. Just go watch it. Anyway, when we find out later that she actually has some kind of superpower, that she's sensitive, I always love stuff like that in movies when it's kind of, it's suggested, it's hinted at, it is there, it's part of the story, and yet it's not what the focus is. And it just, to me, makes it more believable, actually, like the way Unbreakable did it. I really love movies that present a superhuman or supernatural ability gifted to a character, and the movie doesn't focus on it too much. It's just sort of basis, a foundation for why the character is either going through their ordeal, why they're being tormented, or it's just an aspect of their lives that they kind of have to deal with. I think that's the best way to do a superhero story. Because when you look at, Hercules, his legendary stories are all about gods and men manipulating him or taking advantage of him because of his great strength, as opposed to him being some kind of superhero who just shows up when you need him. He really is, he's a person who has a great ability, a great gift, and unfortunately it's used against him so many different times in so many different ways. And in this case, Lily Rose Depp's character, as we learn later in the movie, she's always been sensitive. She's always been sensitive in like the telepathic or psychic kind of way, sort of far more powerful than she even understands that she is. And it's because of her sensitive psychic ability that she has summoned Count Orlok from the dead to be living again. And really not that she was asking for him specifically, she was just looking for anyone who could come back, and he came back, which is explains a lot, considering that every time we see him, his body is decaying and it's got larvae coming out of it. I mean, he's truly undead, with an emphasis on the dead part. I thought that was such a great touch, because especially in today's time where we are so much more afraid of disease and plague, it's as if we're in the dark ages again, or the ages of the plague again. We're back to those fears, which we've always always should have washed our hands after going to the bathroom, stuff like that. Not that solves everything, but it would solve a lot of stuff if you just wash your hands. But it's just, now that we're living in this post-COVID era, making a character who is so disgusting to look at is automatically unnerving, because you just think, I don't want to touch him, I could catch something. And his whole deal is being the demon that lurks over you and eats you. And there is the famous painting of a devil that that leans over a naked woman and devours her while she sleeps. And that image is conjured multiple times during this movie. Uh, it's and quite literally, it occurs over Lily Rose Depp at the end of the movie. So I always pay attention to that. Note that when I did my Elementals review, one of the first things I talked about, or at the very least I showed the image of, was in, I mean, not Elementals. When I did my Eternals review way back when, I may not have said the words, but I definitely used the cut where I was referring to this opening image of the movie after the heroes of the Eternals are introduced and they meet humanity, presumably for the first time. There's a shot where the main character, played by Gemma Chan, she plays Cersei, who can change the molecular structures of things. She essentially has a little knife from these Mesopotamian people or these ancient people, and she turns the knife from wood and stone into gold and silver and hands it to a small boy. And in that frame, we have a sort of matched shot with the glowing sunset full of clouds in the background. This is a matched shot with the famous painting of God reaching his hand out to man, and their fingers almost touching. So again, I don't know the name of that painting, but if a filmmaker makes that reference, or if a filmmaker refers to classical painting, that means the filmmaker is trying to tell you something about this movie, that it's about much more than the simple mechanics of what the movie appears to be about. And so, again, that in mind, that is 100% what Robert Eggers is doing here when he does the demon over the woman's body, devouring her. He's conjuring that image for a reason. That essentially that's what this movie is about. It's about that temptation and the darkness coming for us in a moment of vulnerability. And ironically, he does his own spin where it's us in our vulnerability that begs for that temptation or begs for that thing. And it's within our power to, if we could conjure it, we can also put it to bed and put it to rest. So that's very, very much a kind of hopeful message when you look at it that way. So I really love the fact that she had powers and she is a direct reason for why the events of the movie are happening, because at first it just seems like he already existed and came to her and was perhaps just waiting for her or someone like her to call him so he could have something to do with her power. I absolutely love the reveal that he tells her, "You summoned me. I didn't summon myself. You brought me back from the dead. You are my affliction." His voice is so perfect. But I really thought that was a wonderful little twist. It just kept it fresh because, it's referred to as amongst the movies Robert Eggers had watched for his homework. He watched the Nosferatu movies, the Dracula movies, all the movies, but he also watched Dracula Dead and Loving It from Mel Brooks, which is also a remake / love letter / parody of the same exact films. And so it's an interesting twist that the woman summons the demon. But when he mentioned that, all of a sudden I could see that's why the movie's structured this way, because it's almost much like Dracula Dead and Loving It. Structurally, it's almost starting out with Dracula trying to tempt a woman toward him for him to use for his purposes. And that's how this movie begins. So I had that immediate thought in my head. I thought of Dracula Dead and Loving It. Except in the Dracula Dead and Loving It scene, he's trying to summon, I forget her name, but it's Amy Asbeck, that the beautiful redhead of that movie. She's trying to summon her from her bed, but at the same time, he accidentally summons the maid. So both Amy Asbeck and her maid are waking up. Come to the door. And they both walk toward the door, but they walk into each other and their heads collide and like, you wake up. And then the maid wakes up. No, 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 you sleep. You wake up. Amy Asbeck wakes up. But they both keep listening to him at the same time. So the one goes to sleep and the other wakes up at the same exact time. It's one of my favorite gags of all time. If you have not seen Dracula Dead and Loving It, it is available on Amazon Prime right now. You gotta watch it. You can watch it before Nosferatu. That one you can watch in any order. But if you've seen Nosferatu and you haven't seen Dracula Dead and Loving It, I'm recommending that right now. It's one of my absolute favorite comedies, and it's my second favorite Mel Brooks movie. I'm sorry, Spaceballs. It's all about Dracula Dead and Loving It and Robin Hood Men in Tights. I don't even care for Robin Hood. I don't need any other Robin Hood movie. Robin Hood Men in Tights does it for me. As far as Dracula goes, though, now I have Dracula Dead and Loving It, and its dark twin, its dark twisted twin, Nosferatu 2024, directed by Robert Eggers. But yeah, so the fact that we're starting off with The Temptation, but it was actually summoned by Lily Rose Depp. The woman is the one who called for it. I thought that was a fun twist. I thought it kept the movie very interesting. And then we have the plague rats when Nosferatu arrives at the town by ship. And talk about casting, I forget his name, but Nicholas Hoult, the whole reason he's in this movie, so you already know, the whole reason he's in this movie is because he's married to Lily Rose Depp and he's trying to get a really good job so that he can give her all the things she needs and deserves. And so he gets this opportunity at his work, and his boss is the one who tells him, you have to go to Transylvania to go help bring back Count Orlok so that he can purchase and live in a home that's here in town. And it's oh my god, it's so creepy and scary. What Nosferatu, how he tortures Nicholas Hoult in this movie. I loved the scene where he's always late, which is kind of a running theme for his character. He's late to everything, including the finale. But when we see him tormented by Nosferatu or Count Orlok, when we see that happening, I feel so bad for him. And but that first scene when he comes to meet Count Orlok and he's at the little dining table, and things start to get weird. One of the first weird things is he's looking at a little statue detail that is part of the fireplace, and so the head, it's like a little angel or something. It's a little boy, and the head turns and looks at him, and it's so creepy. Oh my god! And waking up to find out Count Orlok has bitten him, and later on when Count Orlok, when Nicholas Hoult tries to escape, and ends up finding Count Orlok's coffin, and then Count Orlok, he's so scary. Where you see the shadow appear, and the shadow has the ability to move and adjust things, and it's so creepy and so scary. I was just so creeped out by this movie. The way the camera moves with the one character, and then we go into the back of their head, and then we come out of the back of the head of another character, was beautiful. These wonderful transitions, and I hope they were directed to be connected that way, but even if they weren't, and that was the editing did it perfectly. I can't sing enough praise for how well this movie is constructed. When we see the shadow of Orlok unlock a door, or just his finger appear on screen, and he moves it, and it affects something in the real world. But in particular, his little cat and mouse game with Nicholas Hoult in the beginning of this, or I guess it's the middle, is it's messed up, but it's also very, very telling of the suffering that we're going to go through in the rest of the movie. God, I can't get over that beginning. Everything in the first half with Nicholas Hoult and Bill Skarsgård's Count Orlok is so unnerving and creepy. I love it. Yeah, I can't get over that sequence. It's one of my favorite sequences next to, like I said, when Nicholas Hoult is traveling and he's in the woods and he's in the Gothic architecture trying to get to the house. All of that is absolutely gorgeous. And Batman Returns is cited as a childhood influence of Robert Eggers, that he used to love it, which is fantastic because it's one of my favorite childhood movies as well. I love Batman Returns. I love it heads over the Batman 89. I still think it's one of the absolute best Batman films. It's just, but again, it starts off really dark and bleak with dramatic music that's distinctive and memorable and scary and creepy and all that stuff. And in fact, that's what Robert Eggers achieves with this movie, with that amazing visual style. I don't even know. I don't know what to say. I love this fucking movie. Yeah, the whole section of Nicholas Hoult being tormented by Count Orlok was just fascinating, terrifying. You see between cuts, my eyes are a little bit more open. I had a drink of water and a couple cookies. I didn't snap awake, motherfucker. Wow. But I also, it was cool seeing Nicholas Hoult in this type of role because, I don't know, he's really got a fantastic range of roles where sometimes he's the main character, sometimes he's the side character. And I did not like Renfield. I really felt like it was, I don't know, it was trying too hard to be entertaining. I would have much preferred a more straightforward movie, more like this one. I think sometimes when you try to go the cheesy action movie route with comedies and comedy versions of things, it's just too much. I don't think every comedy needs to be an action movie. I think that's a precedent that Tropic Thunder and what was the other movie? And Pineapple Express and Tropic Thunder really started this huge thing where all of a sudden comedy movies were also action movies. It's a nice genre blend for the most part, but it's not really necessarily good for every movie. And I think Renfield, I hope, is sort of the last of that. It doesn't really need to end, but it needs to be more appropriate. I think something like American Ultra, that fits because you actually have a pretty good storyline that blends that kind of action into the comedy story. But Renfield, it went out of its way to be this kind of hokey Hollywood thing. It wasn't for me. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed it, but it wasn't for me. I didn't feel like the writing was totally there either. But there's a case where Nicholas Holt's the main character. He's doing all the fun action. You know what I mean? Or you get a movie like The Menu where he's the boyfriend and he's actually not in the movie that much, even though he's in the whole movie. In this case, I like that he kind of splits that difference where he is sort of the heroic figure of the movie, but if you know the ending, then you realize he's not the hero of the movie. It's sort of this weird situation where both he and Lily Rose Depp are essentially just being tortured for the entire length of the picture. And it's only at the very end when they kind of get their little licks in, but they don't get the traditional movie ending. I think for me, as I already said, this movie was so beautiful and awesome. It could have ended in any kind of way, and I probably still would have liked it. But I think going back to Dracula Dead and loving it, the reason I love the movie as is I think when I watched this with my roommate, my best friend, and you know her, the amazing Z. She's been on an episode, and she's going to be on another one. She helped me review Outsider, the TV show as well, so that's coming up. Even though it's an older recording, but we watched it together. She liked the movie too, but it was the ending when it turns out when Willem Dafoe is sort of defining the final rules and the final way we're getting out of this movie, which is that Lily Rose Depp is the superpower of the movie, and that she's going to have to be the one who finishes Count Orlok off. And we were both expecting more of an action-packed ending, but it's pretty clear with how powerful Count Orlok is, you can't really have a meaningful action scene with him. And I think to bring up one more time Dracula Dead and Loving It, I love that movie. That movie has the traditional action movie ending where it's the explosion of action, the collection of all the main characters together in the same place, and Van Helsing, played by Mel Brooks, and Jonathan Harker. I don't know the actor's name, but fuck, I love that dude. He did such a great job in that movie. Jonathan Harker, they're both battling Dracula, and it's a full-on battle, and Dracula's so powerful that he's just knocking them aside. But then, to go back to my point about Terminator, he's so powerful he could just give them a killing blow, but instead he just throws them to the side so that they have a chance to come back up and try to fight him again. And maybe that's what, in Happy, Sad, Confused, maybe that's what Robert Eggers is pointing out as he, when he brings up loving Dracula Dead and Loving It, and it's one of his favorite movies, I'm like, yes, I think I like this guy. I think I would get along with this guy. He talks about how that Dracula Dead and Loving It points out all of the flaws and stupid things of the movies that it's making fun of. And I wonder if that's probably one of them. That essentially, if you take the powers of Dracula, even if all I know is Dracula Dead and Loving It, I saw Dracula 2000, but I don't recall liking that movie anyway. But other than that, I don't really know Dracula lore. I mean, I saw Blade Trinity, but again, other than that, I don't really know Dracula. I still need to see those Dracula movies. Again, I'm not really into the vampire genre except when Blade's involved, or when Celine is involved. Kate Beckinsale saving her ass. Where was I going with this? For me, when it comes to Dracula Dead and Loving It, I have always kind of taken that ending as that's as good as you can get. If you have a vampire that's that powerful, and you want to have some kind of satisfying climactic battle with that vampire, I feel like Dracula Dead and Loving It did a perfect job of showing how physically you're not going to fight this guy. I mean, you're going to take your swings, but he's just going to knock you aside like nothing, which he does, And ironically, it's only the stupidity of his assistant, which I love that actor too from Ghostbusters. Mister. I wish I had his name. I'm going to put it right here. Oh, man. But only because of the foolishness of his assistant does Dracula catch the sunlight and die. Spoiler alert. Which is, again, one of the best endings of a movie ever. I love the ending of that. I love that whole movie. It has one of those signature sequences where there's a mirror and we see the camera move where we're watching Dracula dance with a woman, and then he swings Amy Asbeck and swings her around, and then the camera turns to see the mirror, and we see Amy Asbeck swinging around by herself, and that is a fantastic motion control shot. It's a fantastic effect. It stands out in my mind for all time as one of my favorite visual. Actually, it's probably not a visual. It's probably a practical effect. One of my favorite effects of all time, next to the T-Rex, is that shot. So, if you take that into account, and then you look at how Robert Eggers chose to present Count Orlok is so huge. I mean, he's way taller than a normal guy. And he's so powerful, and his powers are so vast, You physically cannot have a battle with him. And even Nicholas Hoult tries to kill him in the sort of first half of this movie, where he's been tormented for 20 minutes on, or in his time, 3 days on. He tries to kill him, and he is just swatted to the side. And again, this character is presented with such awe-inspiring, such paralytic fear, and Nicholas Holt's paralytic fear is something I absolutely related to, because as a kid, that's how I was when I was afraid. I would freeze up, and I would be exactly how Nicholas Hoult was. So seeing that brought me right back to my childhood of my own times of fear, and feeling like someone was so much more powerful than me, and I was just in the dark and scared. It really brought me back to that on a personal level. But beyond that, I really felt like it sets the premise up so much that there's no possible way this movie could end with that same Dracula dead and loving it, satisfying action sequence. Because in my head, I felt like, oh, well, this is obviously going there. Maybe if he has the help of another guy or two more guys, which they try to do, maybe we can potentially have that type of action sequence. But again, if this guy is so powerful he can just control your mind with the whim of his hand, then it's not going to matter if you try to attack him. He'll stop you. So with that being in mind, with the setup of Lily Rose Depp's character having this incredible psychic power, it just gives us that window. It gives us that doorway to make sense for why the movie ends the way it ends. Because I'm sure there was other people who had the same feeling about that ending. But I'm happy. I'm happy. I thought, to me, this is the Watchmen thing. When you have Watchmen with the character Dr. Manhattan, who is so powerful, the only way you can stop him is not by depowering him or, put him in the special turbine engine that sucks away his powers. It's like, why would that actually work? He's more powerful than anything on Earth, so why would that possibly work? But when they attack his character, when Ozymandias essentially presents to Dr. Manhattan the possibility that he has caused people he cares about to die, and then his own relationship fails, those are the things that make him so weak emotionally, so vulnerable emotionally, that he flees planet Earth itself and goes to Mars, so he can just have a space to think. That's what it would take to remove the Superman from existence, remove him from the equation in terms of stopping you from doing something. I really think that's beautiful, that's bold, and that's what Nosferatu considers. It really takes that into consideration. This guy is too powerful for a traditional fight. A traditional fight is a joke to him, because you cannot fight him. He's already undead, and he's just too powerful. So I thought the ending was very beautiful. You know, we got the human sacrifice thing going on. I didn't want to see Lily Rose Depp die. She was suffering throughout the whole movie, but it was still to me beautiful. Again, reminded me of Blade 2 or Batman Returns. Batman Returns, Catwoman dies while killing the real villain of the movie. Although the Penguin is the real villain of the movie and he's the center of what the movie's about. The one who puts the Penguin in power and gives him access to everything that makes him capable of being the villain of the movie is actually Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken. So really, Max Schreck is the real villain. And the real villain being corrupt humanity. So when Catwoman destroys Max Schreck, Batman destroys the Penguin, Catwoman destroys Max Schreck. Essentially, the physical hero defeats the physical foe, and the superhuman hero defeats the superhuman foe. And that's kind of the parallel between these movies. You know, Catwoman has 8 lives. She's literally shot and she's killed 8 times in the movie, keeps coming back. In this case, Lily Rose Depp is the psychic being. She's this superhuman being all on her own, of which Count Orloff is feeding directly or indirectly, however you want to shake that out. But yeah, so I was really in the music. Again, going back to the music by Robin Corlin. When we get to that ending after Emma Corrin has died, and sadly we lose Aaron Taylor Johnson as well. But when we get to the ending where Nicholas Hoult, he's back, and again, it explains how Nicholas Hoult survives, because literally the movie does what it does in the very beginning, the opening sequence, right? Lily Rose Depp is alone, crying out for anyone to give her comfort, and it's Count Orlok who appears. And in the midway point of the movie, when we know Nicholas Hoult has been killed, it is Lily Rose Depp begging for her husband to come back to her. And that is when Nicholas Hoult reappears alive and is saved by some nuns. So, you know, her power is real. Her power is affecting the movie as it goes on. You know, it makes sense once you add all the pieces together. And because she is the true hero, Nicholas Hoult never really gets to be the hero, but he does have his moment of trying to kill with the iron tool again, which let me backtrack a bit, because when Nicholas Hoult first arrives in Transylvania, I love that there's the gypsies, and then he goes inside the hotel, and there's a woman speaking a language he can't understand, but we, the audience, can read the text, and it's a warning not to go to the castle. Please, for the love of God, don't go to that castle. And I remember that same exact scene happens in Dracula Dead and Loving It, and it must happen in the other versions as well, where I forget the actor's name, I forget the character's name. The man who would become Dracula's assistant. Master! This actor and this character name right here. The man who would do that, he actually, you know, he's arriving for the same reason. He's arriving for some business meeting summoned by Count Dracula, and he runs into all the townspeople, and all the townspeople tell him, hey, don't go there. He's bad news. He's a bad guy. Bad stuff happens here because of him. And he just doesn't listen to them. He's like, well, you know, okay, I don't care. I'm still going to go because that's my job. It's so ridiculous. But at least what I thought was beautiful is that here, Nicholas Hoult can't hear what they're saying. He doesn't understand what they're saying. So he can't possibly heed their warning. I think if he heard their warning, he might have at least taken a second thought about it. He might My wife really wanted me to stay, and everyone's telling me, do not go there. And literally in the dialogue, I think they say he's killed people, he's killed our animals, he's done all these terrible things. And because he can't understand what she's saying, of course he has to go to the castle. Um, but yeah, so I thought that was just a beautiful twist and touch. So that when we get to this ending, and again, Nicholas Hoult had tried to kill Count Orlok when he first realized he needs to escape the castle, and is swatted away like a fly. And what's beautiful when we get to this ending, and he's with Willem Dafoe, and he's gonna have his moment, and he ends up stabbing Count Orlok's assistant. Count Orlok already has an assistant, and it's Nicholas Holt's boss. So there's a motivation there. And going back to that casting, that actor, I'll put his name and character name here. The actor who plays Count Orlok's sort of psychic assistant, Master. This version of that character. Talk about a great face, a really great face. He really portrayed it feels like a time period. The time period feels authentic. I feel like that was wonderful about American Horizon. I think it was it Horizon and American Saga. And this movie of 2024, I think they both really did a fantastic job, from directing to production design, casting, every level. These people felt like they belonged there in the movie, in the world. But again, just shout out to that casting director for getting this guy. Whoever got the guy who plays Nicholas Holt's boss. Perfect casting, because when he goes crazy and they find him in the mental institution and all of that stuff happens, I loved all of that. You know what I mean? And I felt in many ways, why didn't this happen in Dracula Dead and Loving It? Oh, because it's a comedy. Damn, I just thought that was fucking crazy. But again, coming back to the ending, when Nicholas Hoult, he thinks he's going to get his moment, and he ends up killing the assistant instead. And it's all been a twist that essentially Willem Dafoe set this up himself by secretly imparting to Lily Rose Depp, I think you're the key. I don't know for sure if what we're going to do is going to work. But based on everything I've seen with you, I think you're the only one who can truly make this end. And his faith in her is something also that she kind of sorely needs. She's so lost and confused about what the fuck has happened. She needs someone to tell her what's going on. And also, his faith in her gives her the strength to finish what she started. And so, while it's like, I don't want to imagine Lily Rose Depp being mounted by some gross decaying thing with maggots coming out of his flesh. I'm sure she didn't either. And also, let me say this, because this movie is 2 hours of Lily Rose Depp moaning, gyrating. I could not help but feel, and I have to say this, because again, I know on this podcast many times I've drooled over actresses like a sobbing dog, and it's terrible. And I again mean no offense. I'm just being me. I'm just being a goof for the podcast. This is the one time where, watching the movie, I was like, I'm sorry, Johnny Depp. I'm sorry that I'm watching this movie. You know what I mean? Because actually, Lily Rose Depp, who, again, fantastic. I thought she killed it in this movie. She really reminded me of Keira Knightley. I can't get that out of my head. I feel like if this movie was made 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been Keira Knightley playing the role. But I thought Lily Rose Depp just fucking killed it. But for all her gyrations and sexual behaviors and all that stuff, what really got me was that, all of a sudden, that's when I become aware, oh yeah, this is Johnny Depp's daughter. And because for me, I was introduced to her as an actress and even existing. I didn't know about her until Tusk, where she appears with Kevin Smith's daughter. So it's Kevin Smith's daughter. I found out on the commentary that, oh, she's hanging out. Her Kevin Smith's daughter's friend in the movie is also her friend in real life. It's Lily Rose Depp. I guess they go to school together, or they went to school together, or something like that. But they were real friends, and so Kevin Smith is just like, oh, screw it. Want to be friends in this movie? I have two friends. Like, it might as well just be you two. And they're both Canadians. And they're teenagers of some kind. You know, that's one of those cases where, A, they're teenagers, but also, hey, that's Kevin Smith's daughter. Kevin Smith is one of my, like, you know, heroes of filmmaking. He's one of the directors that I look up to as, like, you're the shining example that I could do my vision. I could do my dream if only I commit to it. So when I see Kevin Smith's daughter, I file that straight under, nope, you're like a little sister to me in my mind. There will be no mental ogling, even in the mind. There'll be no mental ogling, no drooling, no nothing. And oh my God, you're Lily. You're and oh my God, you're Johnny Depp's daughter. Lily Rose Depp's in that movie too, right? So again, I'm like, oh, I love Johnny Depp, Edward Scissorhands, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, fucking Jack Sparrow. You're his daughter. File it under, I ain't gonna think no thoughts. You're your little sister. No drooling. And then, of course, this movie happens. I was like, the whole movie, I just couldn't help. Every single time I was like, I'm sorry, Johnny Depp. I'm sorry that I'm watching this. I swear I wouldn't do this on purpose, Johnny Depp. You know, if I'm ever a director and we work together, I promise you I'm not enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a little bit. I'm so sorry. No, but really, it was like, you're filed under a different folder here. I'm not supposed to watch this. But, you know, that's stupidity aside. I know it's just me and that's my shit. But that's what I couldn't help but thinking the whole time. But when we reached the ending, I was like, okay, great. The ending, the fact that it was used as a tool for self-sacrifice. Where I talk about in my review of Demon Knight a few episodes back how that movie deals with the story of Christ and the three temptations, and we have 3 or 4 characters who are tempted by different things in the movie, and the hero, Jada Pinkett Smith, is the hero because she resists that temptation and thus becomes the next sort of agent of Christ, which is what that movie is really about. On a subtext, not even a subtextual level, it's what it's about in terms of the plot. And so I really, I like that this is kind of reversed, where the fact that you are my affliction, the fact that she knows that they're intertwined, she and Count Orlok are intertwined because of her, the fact of that, I thought it was actually beautiful at the end of the movie when she uses her most her tempting beauty to draw him into the final trap. I thought, wow, beauty killed the beast. I thought that as soon as I realized what was going on, I'm like, you don't really want him. And oh, exactly, you don't really want him. Beauty is going to kill the beast. And I thought, that's fantastic, because I like King Kong. I've only seen the 70s. I've seen the 70s version, and I love the Peter Jackson version. Every time I watch it, that movie gets better and better. And I've literally watched it twice in the last 6 months. I was like, ooh, this is actually a really good movie. The first time I watched it in theaters because of Lord of the Rings, I was like, oh, I missed something when I didn't see those in theaters. I saw King Kong in theaters, like, whoa, that's a long movie. But in rewatch, fucking great movie. But that movie's about how the beauty essentially is the reason the beast dies. And in this case, the beauty is on purpose trying to kill the beast that she summoned. And so I thought that's really cool. I thought, what an interesting way to take the premise. And we have, Now the girl making the sacrifice as opposed to the man, which I don't, I think, again, traditionally, it's the man who's supposed to be sacrificing himself. But just as a form of fresh storytelling, I really like that they flipped it. And flipped it to such a degree that, again, all of her sexual gyrations, and I'm sorry I'm watching this Johnny Depp, that 2 hours of suffering she goes through, which sometimes seems like she's enjoying, but all of that was actually a setup for this ending. And I thought, what a powerful payoff. It really paid off the fact that we went through that, because again, I was not really enjoying it because I'm like, yeah, you're like a little sister, you're Johnny Depp's daughter, I can't look at you like this. A whole movie of like, sorry Johnny Depp, I'm sorry your daughter's suffering like this is horrible. After all of fucking that, you know what I mean? The fact that she uses it and turns it on the bad guy, I was like, wow. Again, he is too powerful to fight. You can't fight him physically. Although I would have liked it if Nicholas Hoult, showed up and he swatted Nicholas Hoult aside, just to have some kind of climactic action, you know what I mean? But all the better that it was not what I kind of wanted. All the better that it was this unexpected ending that was both inevitable, both also predicted. It's mentioned, it's said at the beginning of the movie, this is her vision, that she saw herself with death and she was happy and she didn't understand why. And then by the end of the movie, it's because she saved her husband and she saved an entire city being plagued by the plague rats that Count Orlok brings with him. So it's just wow. I love that they did that twist. Again, because of the 2 hours of suffering, Nicholas Hoult was also suffering, so I wanted him to have a bigger moment than just kind of accidentally killing the assistant. But at the same time, I really can't help but love that. I'm so grateful that after 2 hours of being mentally tortured, that she uses the thing that Orlok was obsessed with, her body, her attraction. She uses it against Orlok in the best way possible. I didn't see that ending coming, and I was very satisfied that they went that way. I'm really glad that Robert Eggers took a chance on what could potentially be not a popular ending for his movie, but I don't know. I haven't heard much about this movie. I think there was a couple maybe reviews I skimmed by, but I didn't pay attention. I don't like if I'm interested in seeing a movie, I don't like to watch the trailers, and I don't like to watch. Maybe I'll watch the first trailer, but if I'm interested in seeing a movie, I don't like to watch the reviews before I see it, unless it's like a spoiler-free one from Red Letter Media or Kind of Funny. But outside of that, I really like to know as little about a movie as possible. So the fact that this movie does everything possible to pay off its setups and does it in such a personal, grimy, grindy, terrible, sad way. Yeah, fantastic. I can't say enough good things about this movie. Again, I think it's the Batman Returns of vampire movies. I'm so impressed with the visuals of this film. It's just top notch. And although I thought Witch was great, again, it's like, I can't tell this is your first movie, and that's great. That means you're a really good director. That means you've hidden your budget. If you had a budget of $2 and you made it look like you had 10, then you're hiding your budget and you're really doing a good job directing. But here with this movie, I just thought, man, every second of it flows. Every problem matters. Every character matters. Like I said, Emma Corrin being in this movie, which was so unexpected. What a host of spoils. So anyway, those are my spoiler thoughts. The scenes I enjoyed the most in this movie. I really like how it all kind of connects together. I'm very curious. What did you think? Did you like the movie? Do you have a favorite scene? Tell me if you like the movie. What's your favorite scene in the comments? I just want to know who's your favorite character. You know, things like that. Um, yeah. Oh, and so for going back to the editing, the one thing I might have changed is maybe just show a shot of him seeing his house on fire. I don't recall him seeing that. He just looks at the sun and dies, and I really felt like we needed one more shot to establish what the hell this guy needs, you know. So, yeah. So, that being said, I'm dozing off already. Not enough praise can be given for this movie. I can't believe what a good job the director did. And can't wait to see the next one. So thank you for watching, and aloha.